folks. So we're going to talk about InDesign today. And InDesign is a program that's primarily made for document layout. So we learned in Photoshop, basically that Photoshop is a photo manipulation tool. Illustrator is something that you can actually create vector graphics, which are scalable to any size and they won't lose any quality. Now, InDesign is a page layout program. So one of the features with it is like if you had to design like a 120 page catalog, you would not do that in Photoshop or Illustrator to design all that, because Photoshop and Illustrator could not handle that many pages. However, InDesign can. So we're going to talk about InDesign. So let's get started. So we have our first screen that kind of pops up here is a new document window. So it's like if you don't have that popped up, you just basically hit the new file button over here on the side. That will launch this screen. So what I'm going to talk about is a lot with this is going to be basically setting up this particular document that I'm going to be working on. So on the right side, you'll see that there is a width and a height. Default set to picas. Now, picas is like an old graphic design term that's been used a lot, and a lot of times clients have no idea what a pica is. So oftentimes they will give you inches to kind of work with, but you have points, inches, millimeters, centimeters, ceros, agates, and pixels. So I'm going to just choose inches because that is a kind of like a universal measurement that's being used a lot in our country. So I'm going to kind of use that. Now you also notice here there's an orientation, whether it's vertical or horizontal. That tells you if the document is going to be vertical or horizontal depending on what you want to lay it out to be. A number of pages that is being used is a lot of times if we're doing a document in InDesign, many times you will do like if you're doing a booklet, always booklets are multiples of 4. So if I wanted to do something that's like more than 4 pages, I'm going to basically make it divisible by 4. Okay. So I'm going to take my pages to 8. And then facing pages is basically how, if you look at any kind of booklet, if you look at basically the one side left versus right, each page faces each other. So this is how it is laid out in the document. We're just going to go in order, one page at a time. So I'm going to leave facing pages checked for this one. Columns is how many columns are in this document. And again, anything below this is basically any are just guides. They don't print. They don't automatically allow you to put in stuff automatically. It is just a way of aligning things. So it's like if you want columns, I might say just 2 with a gutter of, I don't know, quarter of an inch or 0.25. And margins is whatever the space between an edge of a document and the edge of the page. So it's like, what is it being cut out to be? And then bleed is a very important one. It's like in graphic design, if you have a color that goes right to the edge of your page, that often will contain a bleed. In graphic design, you never design, if you have a bleed, you do not stop right at the edge of the document. You always go about 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch beyond the page to allow for it to cut along that line and not leave a white line. So you'll never design right to the edge of the page. You will always design beyond it if you have a bleed. So I'm going to actually put in a value here. So I'm going to go 0.125. I'm going to hit this little chain link here, and that will give me about an 1/8 inch bleed around the document. We're going to ignore slug for this because we hardly ever use those. But we're going to ignore those for right now. So with all that stuff chosen, I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and let's see what we make. All right, so if I were to zoom out, you'll notice that here are my 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. that is how it's all laid out. And you'll notice that in this document here, this pink and purple lines that go around the edge, that is your margin. It is not like Microsoft Word where it automatically will give you that margin. This is not the edge of the document. The edge of the document is where the white ends. So that is what's going to be cut off. The red line is what is called a bleed. So you want to make sure that if you have a color filling out the background, you want to make sure it goes all the way to that red line. And then the column gutter, like columns here, has got 2 columns and a gutter in the middle. Okay. Now in InDesign, I like to refer to anything that is in design is basically set up as everything is in a box. So when we design in InDesign, you have to account for that. Everything is going to be in a box somehow. So primarily, InDesign is used to to lay out text. That is its powerhouse. Laying out text within here is far more powerful than InDesign, or it's far more powerful than Photoshop, and far more powerful than Illustrator. So how do you lay out text? Well, if you go over to the left side, you'll see that there's that type tool. If you click on that and you move your cursor over here, you'll notice if you just click once, you'll notice no blinking cursor comes up. Just like, if you did it in Illustrator, it would give you a blinking cursor. If you did it in Photoshop, same thing, it would give you a blinking cursor. In InDesign, it doesn't, because of what I said earlier. Everything needs to be in a box. So if I were to have this, I would basically go ahead and click, hold, and drag and create a box. Now you have a blinking cursor up there in the side or in the corner. That will allow you to place in your text. Now, a lot of times what I often find is that there are many times where a client will come to you and you have to design a brochure that needs to go to the printer on Friday. It is, let's say, Monday, for instance, and they need the brochure to go out to the printer by Friday. So, but they need a design, and you basically ask them, well, when are you going to get me content to put in there? Oh, we'll have that by Wednesday. So they're asking you to design something, but you have no content. So what do? Basically, InDesign, this happens all the time, to the point where actually InDesign has this feature cut into it that allows you to put in dummy text, or what's often referred to as Greek text, or like basically just this placeholder text. So if I go up to type up at the top and I go all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see this option called fill with placeholder text. I'm going to have you click on that, and what it will put in there is a bunch of gobbledygook, more Latin than anything, but I'm sure it's like if anybody are Latin scholars will be able to decipher this. More than likely it'd just be gibberish. It's made primarily to allow you to design stuff the way it is before you get the actual copy to place in. So what we have here is all this text here, and one of the things you want to do is I'm going to grab this corner here and I'm going to click, hold, and drag up to create a column. Okay, now you may notice that in there it doesn't maintain all the text. You may notice that there's this red box that shows up. Anytime you see a red box with a plus sign, that means there is more beyond that box. So what do you do now? Well, a lot of times if you have this and you want to continue it on in certain spots, you can go ahead and click, and it'll give you this cursor, which then you can go ahead and put in another column, click, hold, and drag, and it'll put in that. Now there is still more, so I can click on that, and I can maybe go to another page and put in another column and do that. All right, so I've got like 3 boxes here. 1, 2, 3. And if I change these, you may notice that everything shifts. You can see that. If I move this, extend this here, they'll do less here. If I make it bigger, Yeah, well, no, I didn't mean to do that. Here, let's do that. So extend it down farther. So all these boxes are interconnected somehow, which is very, very important when it comes to laying out text like this. If you have multiple page articles and stuff, you want to be able to have them all connect instead of trying to keep track of what words went on what page, and all that kind of stuff. So this is very important to connect all those boxes. Now, what if I were to say, okay, I don't want this column here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. What happened to the text? It's all down in this. So it's like it's still actually connected to, even though the middle box was deleted, it still had that connection going between the first and the last box. So it still had that going. So we have that connection as well. All right. Okay, so a lot of the things I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to extend on this, and I'm going to actually put in some kind of headline. Okay, so with headline, if I go ahead and highlight that, if I go over to my right side, you'll notice that there are a couple different palettes here. You'll notice that there's properties. Properties box has a character palette and a paragraph palette. So character, if you've not seen these, you can go up to Window, type in tables, and you'll see character and paragraph. So I'm going to talk about those for a minute. All right, so working with text, you're going to work with basically character or paragraph. So if I have a headline, for instance, and I move to my character, you'll see that there is text, like basically what fonts are available. Now, my list of fonts is probably going to be a little bit more so than yours, but still, it's like you'll have a lot more to kind of like choose from. All right, so I like Adobe Caslon, so I'm going to go to, or actually, I like Eveneer next, so that's one of my favorite fonts. So I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to choose bold. And then when I have any of these fonts, when we're talking about fonts like this, you'll notice that there are many fonts that actually have arrows next to them. This one in particular does not have an arrow, which means that there's only one style. If I have an arrow next to it, it means that there are more than one style. Like right now, it's like regular and black. But with Eveneer, I have all these options, which are ultralight condensed, medium, demi, bold condensed, heavy, all that stuff. So I have options that I can utilize for this. Now I can change the size of it using this box here. I can make it bigger. I can also, if I have something along these lines, if I wanted to make this one smaller, let's say a subhead, I make this smaller. But if I wanted to make it come closer to that, I can choose what is called leading. So if I choose leading, and I can basically increase that, but I can also increase that with the body of text as well. If I change my leading, you can see it spaces that out a little bit more, gives you a little bit more space. So, all right. Now, of course, with these two, like right now, this is kerning, this is tracking. There are distinct differences between those, and this is what they are. So if I look at this headline here, the designer's eye may look at this, the space in between the H and the E, as a little bit more gapped out than some of the other ones. So this is a designer's eye. All right, so if I wanted to actually change that space, if I look, like right now, if I put my cursor in between any two letters, if you watch it kerning, right there it's 0. If I go here, it's still 0, still 0. There was one here, right there. -6. All right, that is a pre-built value in between two particular letters. If I wanted to squeeze that space in here, I could just put my cursor in between two letters, and I'll hit the down arrow to make it come a little bit closer. for that. Now, kerning is great if you're trying to change some characteristics of a headline. That works out great. But tracking, however, you can use it, but tracking is a selection of characters and spacing them out. Now, when, of course, would I actually use that? Well, I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to wait until I can get something here that's going to throw things off. There we go, right here. All right, right here. So, if I look at this and I see that, okay, there are 1, 2, 3 hyphens in this paragraph. In Indesign, you want to make sure that there is no more than 3 paragraphs or any more than 1 paragraph per not character styles. Okay, where did I go here? Oops. That's not what I wanted. Sorry. Ah. Okay. What the heck is going on here? Okay. Alright, character. Wow. Well, that didn't happen to me before, so not sure what I did there, but you know, we're gonna move forward. Okay, so like areas like this where you have these 3 hyphens, you want to make sure that you have no more than this 1 hyphen. I personally don't like hyphens at all, unless it really, really needs to be done. So a lot of times what you want to do is you want to limit the amount of hyphens in a document. So like right here, in this particular case, this one word here is dehyphenated and there's 4 letters. Now if I choose that line and I go to tracking and bring that down, that will force that to come up. So you use tracking to kind of like bring certain letters up. Now, in some cases, like here we go, I'm going to make one right now. If I delete those words and you have this one word on the last line, this is what is called a widow. And in graphic design terms, this is a no-no. Okay, anytime you have a widow, you do not want that to be there. You want to actually try to incorporate it or bring it up if you can. This is where tracking comes into play too. If I highlight this whole entire paragraph, and then bring my tracking down a little bit until it comes up, then that will work. So it like forces that one to come up. In this case, where it's an OF and this is longer, I might actually put my cursor before the of and hold down Shift and hit return, and that will force it to come down a little bit like that and make hyphens kind of go away. So it'll make your text look a little bit better than before. All right. There are some other things here. If I go to headline and I choose this up, it can make my text a little higher. This can make my text a little bit wider. All right. This one is my baseline shift, so I can move this one up above the baseline, or I can move it down, depending on what I want to do with it. And this one will slant. If there's no italicized version of it, you can skew it a little bit. Okay. All right. Now if I go to type, tables, and paragraphs, I can bring up my paragraph tab palette. All right. So you have your options such as alignment. So it's like if I choose, let's say I work with this particular paragraph right here. Usually all of those. If I go here and I choose center, it'll center that particular paragraph or any other paragraph that I actually have chosen. It could be all your text if you wanted to, or right align, or left justify, which means that when you go left, it'll line up every letter on this side, and then on the right, it will line up all the letters on this side as well. Center justify, and left justify, or right justify, and full justification, which sometimes does not work so well, especially with these. So it's like basically we'll give you a gappy space in there, which oftentimes does not work out great. So I try to avoid full justification if I can. Oftentimes it's okay to have alignment in certain areas. In these, what we can do is we can do a left indent, which will bring that in. You can do a right indent, which will bring that in as well. You can also indent the first line of a paragraph. You can also indent the last line of a paragraph, which you're not really seeing that because there's too much gap in between this edge and that word. So we're not too concerned about that one. This will give you space above the paragraph. This will give you space below the paragraph. So like right here, 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 and here. All right. Now this will give you the drop caps. So it's like this will give you a drop cap. Right now it's set to 1. 1 is default. Even though it's at 0 at first, and it just says if you increase it by 1, it's still 1 character. So if I go to 2 characters, it will basically put, or 2 lines, it will put 2 lines, or 3, or 4, or 5, however many lines you want it to go, it'll do that. And then this, how many characters are included in it. So you can add characters into the mix. Okay. All right. So I'm going to end it right there. This is how the introduction to Adobe InDesign. I'm going to stop it right there. Hopefully you got enough knowledge as far as what InDesign is all about and using some of the text options. All right. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'll see you in the next video.